The night air in Manila was warm, heavy with the smell of street food and the noise of traffic. On a narrow sidewalk, under a flickering street lamp, stood a young girl named Althea. She wore a faded dress, her small feet bare against the rough pavement. In her hands was an old plastic box where strangers would sometimes drop coins as they passed. But what drew people's attention was not her appearance, it was her voice. When Althea sang, the chaos around her seemed to fade. Jeepneys roared by. Vendors shouted out their prices, children laughed in the distance. But her voice rose above it all, carrying a mixture of pain and hope that touched anyone who stopped long enough to listen. Some people paused, filming her on their phones, while others hurried by, too busy to notice the little girl singing with such raw emotion. Every note she sang carried her story. The struggles of poverty. The nights when her family went to bed hungry. The dreams she dared to hold on to even when life seemed unfair. Her mother worked tirelessly, but still, food was never enough for everyone at home. Singing on the streets was not just a passion for Althea. It was survival. Each coin she collected meant her younger siblings could eat the next morning. And yet, despite her hardships, Althea never sang with bitterness. Instead, her voice was filled with light, as if each song was a prayer whispered into the night sky. She believed, deep in her heart, that music was her gift. Gift that could carry her beyond the streets one day. She didn't know how or when, but she sang as though the world was listening. One evening, while Althea sang her heart out beneath the Manila night sky, a tourist stopped in his tracks. He was captivated by the voice that floated above the noise of the street. Pulling out his phone, he recorded her performance, and uploaded it online with the caption, "An angel's voice found on the streets." Within days, the video spread like wildfire. Millions of people across the globe shared it, commenting in awe at the young girl's gift. "She sounds like she was born for the biggest stages." One person wrote, "How is this girl not famous yet?" asked another. Messages of encouragement poured in, and for the first time in her life, Althea felt seen, not just by those passing by, but by the whole world. Then came the moment that changed everything. A call arrived from a representative of America's Got Talent. They had seen the viral video and wanted Althea to audition. At first, she couldn't believe it. She stared at the letter in her trembling hands, her heart racing. Fear and excitement swirled inside her. She had never even been inside an airport, let alone boarded a plane. How could a girl from the streets possibly stand on one of the world's biggest stages? Her mother noticed her hesitation and gently took her hands. "Anak," she said softly, "this is your chance. Sing not just for us, but for every child who dreams." With tears in her eyes, Althea nodded. She knew the journey would be frightening, but she also knew she couldn't let fear hold her back. Carrying only a borrowed dress, her faith, and the dreams of her family, Althea prepared for the journey of a lifetime. The day of the audition finally came. As Althea stepped into the massive theater, where America's Got Talent was filmed, her heart pounded in her chest. The bright stage lights were blinding. The audience stretched out farther than her eyes could see, and the panel of judges sat before her, icons she had only ever seen on television. She felt small, almost invisible, in her simple borrowed dress and worn-out shoes. When asked her name, she spoke timidly into the microphone, her accent carrying the softness of her Filipino roots. Some members of the audience whispered, wondering if this shy little girl from the streets could really perform on such a grand stage. Althea's hands trembled as the music began, and for a brief second, fear almost silenced her. But then, she closed her eyes and remembered the streets of Manila. The sound of jeepneys, the smell of roasted corn. The faces of her siblings waiting for their next meal. With a deep breath, she let the first note escape her lips. The entire theater fell silent. Her voice rang out clear, strong and heartbreakingly beautiful. Each lyric carried her struggles, her resilience, her dreams. The audience, who just moments before had doubted her, now leaned forward, captivated. Tears welled in the eyes of strangers who had never known her story but felt it through every note. As the final note echoed, the crowd erupted into thunderous applause. Some rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, their faces glowing with awe. Even the judges, usually reserved, looked stunned. Simon Cowell, known for his sternness, leaned forward in his chair. His expression unreadable. But his eyes revealed he had just witnessed something extraordinary. The applause thundered through the theater, but Althea stood frozen, her tiny hands gripping the microphone as tears blurred her vision. She had never seen so many people cheer for her. For a moment, she thought it was all a dream. At any second she would wake up back on the streets of Manila. But this was real. Simon Cowell leaned closer to his microphone, his gaze fixed on her. "Althea," he said, his voice softer than usual, "I don't think you even realize how powerful that was. That performance wasn't just singing. It was storytelling, it was heart, it was truth. You reminded me tonight why I love doing this show." The audience erupted again, chanting her name. The other judges praised her too, each remark dripping with admiration, but everyone could sense that Simon had something else in mind. His expression shifted, and the crowd grew louder, anticipating what might happen. Then, in one sudden motion, Simon slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. The entire theater exploded with cheers. Golden confetti shot into the air, raining down over the stage like shimmering stars. Althea gasped, her hands flying to her face. She dropped to her knees, overwhelmed, as tears streamed down her cheeks. Her mother, watching from backstage, cried uncontrollably, pressing her hands to her mouth as she saw her daughter's life change in an instant. Simon rose from his chair and walked onto the stage. He knelt beside Althea, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You've just changed your life, and your family's life. Forever," he whispered. "You belong here." The little girl who once sang for coins on the street, now stood in golden confetti, embraced by a dream she had only dared to imagine. Althea's golden buzzer moment quickly became one of the most talked about performances in AGT history. The video of her audition spread across social media like wildfire, collecting millions of views within hours. Around the world, people were moved not only by her angelic voice, but also by her story of perseverance and hope. News outlets wrote about the little girl from the streets of Manila who won the world's heart. Back home, her family crowded around a small television in their neighborhood, tears streaming down their faces, as they watched confetti fall over Althea. Neighbors gathered outside, cheering as though the victory belonged to them all. For the first time, Althea's mother could look her daughter without fear of what tomorrow might bring. Pride replaced worry in her eyes. As Althea continued in the competition, opportunities began to pour in. Music producers reached out, schools offered her scholarships, and charities pledged support for her family. But through it all, Althea remained humble. In interviews, when asked what she wanted most, she simply said, "I just want my family to have a better life. And I want to keep singing so people feel less alone." Her journey became more than just about winning a talent show. It became a symbol of resilience for every child who had ever been overlooked or underestimated. She showed the world that greatness can rise from the humblest of places. When Althea stepped onto the AGT stage again for the semifinals, she no longer looked like a shy street performer. She stood tall, glowing with confidence, knowing she was no longer singing just for coins or survival. She was singing for millions who believed in her. And most importantly, she was singing for the dream she had carried in her heart all along.